In this video lesson, we will state the characteristics of a function and represent continuous domains or ranges as compound inequalities. So the essential question we are addressing is, how can multiple representations of functions, such as tables, graphs, ordered pairs, etc., be used to reason and make sense of relationships and model change? Our vocabulary are domain, range, discrete, and continuous. And just to refresh our memory on that, the domain represents the x values or the independent variable, and the range represents the y values or the dependent variable. Discrete is something, a value or a variable that can be counted and is represented often by gaps within its graph, and a continuous variable is a variable that can be measured and is often represented by a graph that does not have gaps or breaks within the graph. So we have two continuous functions, and we're saying here that both of these functions share the same domain. Okay, so we've already discussed domain as the x values within this graph. So I'm going to draw a line from the -4 here, because it lines up with the beginning point of both g of t and f of t, to +4, because that point lines up with the end point of g of t and f of t. So we talked today and previously about how to represent our domain as a compound inequality. All of these values from -4 to +4 represent the domain of both of these functions. So I could write that as -4 is less than or equal to t, which is less than or equal to +4. So t is between -4 and +4. Now let's look at these same graphs and find the range of these two continuous graphs and list those as compound inequalities as well. So I'm going to find the lowest point on f of t, which is here at -9, and the highest point of f of t, which is -1. And I'm just going to draw that line here. So again, as a compound inequality, I'm going to list my lowest value first. -9 is less than or equal to f of t, which is less than or equal to -1. Let's do the same with g of t. I start at -7. I go up to +9. All of those y values are included in this graph, and so I would list it as, or write it as, -7 is less than or equal to g of t, which is less than or equal to 9. So now I want to figure out, where are these two values the same? Where are they equal? Okay. So what does that mean? Where does f of t equal g of t? Well, I can figure that out by finding where they intersect. So these two red dots show me where f of t crosses g of t. So let's see where that is for t. T is equal to -1, and t is equal to 2 when g of t and f of t are the same. So t is equal to -1, and t is equal to +2 when they intersect. And that is represented by those two red dots. Again, if you want to pause it and rewind to go over those 2 points, you can. So now I have a table of values here. I have my t and my f of t and my g of t. And I am going to figure out when t is equal to -2, what is f of t and g of t? When it's equal to 0, what are those two functions, or the f of t and g of t, and the same for 1 and 2. So let's find first t right here at -2. So where is that on our graph? Well, I notice here for g of t, that's going to be -3. So I'm going to put -3 here. And I'm going to do the same for f of t. So when t is -2, f of t is -7, and g of t is -3. So now let's look at 0. When t is 0, that means it's basically on the y-axis. So when t is 0, we're going to see where our graphs cross the y-axis. F of t crosses the y-axis at -5, and g of t at -7. Go ahead and complete 1 and 2. So I already completed these two, and if you notice at 2, where these two graphs basically intersect, I have the same value for f of t and g of t, which is -3. So the last part of this lesson, we're going to look at intervals and try to figure out where f of t is less than g of t. So if you look at the graph, where is g of t higher than f of t? Well, I can tell already at this point when I have my -4. If I look back at my table, my -4, my g of t is at 9, and my f of t is at -9. So which value is greater, 9 or -9? Well, you would say 9 is greater than -9. So right here, from -9 up into -2, f of t is less than g of t. So I'm going to write that here. So again, I'll write it as an inequality from -9 less than. No, I'll just write it actually. I'm going to just write that one down. So from -9 to -2, f of t is going to be less than g of t. But it's also less than g of t once it crosses. So if you notice at this point and this point in our graph, it is still less than g of t. So again, that's going to be 2, 2, 4. So at both 2 to 4 and -9 to -2, both of these intervals, f of t is less than g of t. So hopefully this is useful. We're going to be talking about operations involving functions tomorrow. So remember to watch this video. If you have questions, feel free to give me an email or remind me. Also, don't forget to rewind the video to watch it again if you have questions.